Welcome to another episode of Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Wally. And today, I am so excited to have on the guy who holds every fitness record at Western Michigan University. He has a cult-like following with the Columbus Cottonmouths of the Southern Professional Hockey League. He scored one collegiate goal and was my college roommate. Well, the first year we didn't live together, but he's basically been my roommate for all 4 years. And he is also a Narch champion. That means North American Roller Hockey champion. And he trains with world-renowned trainer Jeff Lavecchio. He has been working with Stretch's Chippy Tits. How is that going? And how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Brent. Thank you for that very nice introduction. Very happy to be on Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Wally. It's funny that you ask about Vex. So to answer your question, for the past, I would say 5 days, things are not going well. So I had a couple of days where I couldn't mix in my workout from Vex every day. And I'll get into that story after, but then that turned into a couple of days, I was busy at work all day, had to go out and see some stuff. Now I've missed a few in a row. I'm 3 workouts behind, where I don't know, probably 2.5 months, I hadn't missed a day. And even on off days, I was exercising. Active recovery days, Vex. I've never skipped a day, except for this week. And then it was awesome. I got to, it was the end of Christmas and I was off for 3 weeks. And it's like Christmas, like COVID, have a baby at home, sitting around, eat all day, couple beers every day. Next thing you know, getting a little bit, thick in the middle, as I tend to from time to time. And then I, out of nowhere, I follow Vex on social media. I see all the stuff he's doing. I texted him and I was like, we keep in touch a little bit over the years. I texted him, I'm like, dude, I'm fat. I've got a few weights kicking around. I've got some resistance bands. What do I do? I'm a mess. So he was like, oh, no problem. Send this workout, download this app. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I don't have anything to do. It breaks up my day. I sit in my office at work all day. So it's been awesome. It helps. I feel better. So shout out to Vex, my current coach.
Well, I guess just in case people didn't listen to episode 2, you should. Jeff Lavecchio was the inspiration of this podcast because I went on his podcast and he is a trainer that's training NHL players and up and coming players in St. Louis. And he has an app that anybody can use all over the world. And Stretchy here in, where are you now? And I'm going to give the background of how we know each other now. Okay. So Vex, way to go, buddy. And everybody sign up, get in shape. So Stretch and I know each other. We met at Western Michigan University. I guess it'd be orientation day. And then we spent the next 4 years together, really learning about life and teaching each other about life and kind of showing each other what not to do sometimes. And we also, after our successful collegiate careers, during it, we won a roller hockey tournament, which we'll get into. And then this is where the history is so rich and thick. When my hockey career was over and I started with the company I'm with now, I had to go out to be a field technician and wrap pipes as a heat treater, a heat treatment technician. And I was learning the business and the company. And I was sent to the Burlington, Ontario region, and I called Stretch kind of out of the blue since I had been in Europe for 10 years. We had stayed in contact, but you don't see each other that much. And I said, hey, Stretch, I'm coming to work at Burlington for the next 2 months. And then I guess you can take it from there because you had a different life now from like in the past.
Yeah. So it's funny. And my wife will probably, she told me before, she was like, make sure, it was, make sure you talk about that, how great it was when Brent lived with us. And I was like, well, I'm sure we'll talk about that, of course. So I was worried. My current wife, Kathleen, I was living out in Benbrook, which was about, I don't know, what was it, like 35 minutes from where you had to go in Burlington, like 40 minutes or something. I'm living out there, and you call me one day and you're like, hey, like, I got to come down there. And Kathleen had she'd moved in a little while ago, but not like maybe been living with me for like a year. But she hadn't really met any of the guys yet or anything. Like, she hadn't met any of the college buddies. And that was back in, I don't know, that was like 5 or 6 years ago now, like 5 years ago. And like, we were living a little bit faster and looser from time to time back then. And I was kind of like, oh man, like, how's this going to go over? So I remember the day that I like had to go and be, obviously, I mean, what was I going to say? No, like, obviously you're coming to stay with me. If you're coming around, I was going to send you to a hotel. So
well, I did stay in a hotel for a week because I didn't want to impose.
Right. This is how that went. So I go to Kathleen and I'm like, honey, I'm like, my buddy Brent from school, I'm like, he's got to work down here. And obviously, like, I have to offer for him to obviously come and stay with us. And I was like, but he said that he's going to stay at the hotel on like, what the original thing was, you were going to stay at the hotel like Sunday night, Monday night, then stay with me like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then go home. So I was like, you'll be here 2 nights a week. And then I think you went back to the hotel for like one night. And I was like, honey, he's staying at the Motel 6. Like, we can't let him stay there. And she was like, no, we can't let him stay there. Like, that's dangerous. So we were like, you're staying in like a $69 hotel on the side of the highway in Burlington. And we were like, you can't live there. You're going to be here for like 3 months. So then you just stayed at our house forever. And yeah, no, it was great. We loved it. It was like we said back then, we're like, it's like we had jobs and we had to go to work during the day, but for at least like 5 hours a day, like we would come home, we would hang out till 11 o'clock at night. And it was like, it's wicked. Like, you got your buddy over all the time. And when I woke up in the morning, you were gone. I never saw you. When I came home, dinner was made. You always had beer in the fridge. It was great.
I could tell you were a little bit nervous just because we hadn't lived together since our college days, and I wasn't maybe the same roommate now or I guess it's 5 years ago now, but I was a little more mature than when we were college roommates.
You were substantially more mature, as I was as well. I think that it's easy to see how things could have spiraled out of control, but I don't think they did. And all in all, I think it was a successful stay. We enjoyed having you as part of the family for a while. Well,
tell Kathleen thank you, because she had never met Wally. I'm sure she had heard of him, but so actually, I think that is probably why now you are a father, which you'll have to explain how that's been right now, since before we get into the hockey stuff here. But literally, I stayed with you guys for about 2 months, and I remember surprising the family right before Christmas. They didn't know I had got off and I was done the however many hours I had to do. And I was done before Christmas, and I went home and surprised them. And literally the day I moved out, you got engaged. And it was like, if you can live with him for 2 months, you're my gal.
It was the next day. And I did not tell you. You're right. I did not tell you that was about to happen because I was nervous, and I, got to make sure that everything went off without a hitch. Not many people knew, except for I had a buddy of mine who helped me out with my proposal. But
I knew. You told me, you donkey.
Oh, I don't even remember telling you. I remember that it was the day after you left.
Yeah, because I was driving away going, wow, I wonder how it's going to go.
I don't even remember that part. It tells you about the first 2 months of the trip.
Okay. So, I guess the other part of that is when I stayed with you guys, my part of it was, well, I didn't have to pay for a hotel now because you wouldn't let me pay rent. So I think it was $99 a day. And I said, well, I'll cook dinner every night and I'll supply any alcohol that we may drink after a hard day's work of, say, wrapping pipe and whatever. What are you doing now?
I work and I'm a sales manager for a large corporation of sorts in the business in Canada. And yeah, I've been doing it for like 10 years probably, but life is good on the work front.
Good. So anyways, we did have a few good meals though, didn't we?
So to rewind this back to when you left, I forget what we ate something for dinner like 2 days after you were gone on like a normal night of the week when you would have been making dinner for us. And I remember being like, do we have any wine? And we were like, no. And we were like, ugh. And then we were kind of like, I guess dinner kind of sucks. Like we were eating something that like wasn't exciting. And we were like, this is brutal. We were like, I miss Brent. Like when you were gone, we were like, I lived with you in our younger years, and I was never like, oh, I miss Brent. Like from a living standard point. and then when you were gone, we were like, man, like what the hell are we gonna eat? Like I felt like we were like scrapping together and we could put together and eat. And then I remember there's meals that stick out in my mind. Number one, your first out of the gate meal, your lead off hitting meal was chicken ramen. You made chicken ramen and you were rattled that you couldn't get the right type of noodles. And I was like, get off of your high horse. And you were like, these are not the right type of noodles for this. It was some weird noodle from like the international section. And I was like, who is this guy? But it was good. It was like really good. And I remember eating it and being like, what the hell? Like, where did Brent? And then you told me about how you kind of like, when I was playing overseas, a lot of time on my hands. Like, and I think back, I'm like, God, if I could have learned how to do a meal. I could have been a doctor if I'd used all that spare time. But you learned how to cook. So chicken ramen was your leadoff hitter. The best thing you ever made, and I'm not lying to you, I will take this to the end of the earth until you are knocked off your perch. You made cast iron burgers one night with grilled pineapple on them. Do you remember? With brioche buns? You taught me about brioche buns, and I've never looked at bread the same since. Like, if I'm making burgers, I'm going brioche every time. But those burgers were unbelievable. I'm trying to think. There's probably, if I asked Kathleen, she would be like, "Oh, remember this one?" You had a couple. I mean, you cooked dinner 45 times probably in 2 months. And I think it might have been a little bit longer than 2 months, but you had like a 95% like great dinner success rate. I'll give you that. If our other buddies are listening to this, they're going to be like, that's a lie, but it's the truth. Yeah, always beer in the fridge, always had a bottle of Fantini. Those were the days.
Yeah, and it was a fun stay, and I did start my culinary journey probably in Denmark when it was a small town and there was nothing to do, and I had Colby was basically a baby, so there was really nowhere to go or nothing to do, so I literally started learning about cooking, and I really got into it there. Like I'll make spätzle from Germany at home, and like I'll make anything. But now you're on your own culinary journey, I believe.
I am, but Brent, I have to rewind one more thing to when you stayed with me. I remember when you left, and I went downstairs because we had the day you came down. I had like a big like queen size air mattress, and you were like, I'm gonna stay in the basement, and I was like, okay. And there's a bathroom down there or whatever. I had a big queen size air mattress. We put the pump out, the like electronic pump that would have pumped it up. We had sheets for it. We had the whole bed laid out. And you stayed for 2 months. Never once did we pump up that mattress. Never once did you even put a sheet down on the leather couch that you slept on every single night. You just put a sheet over top of you and put your head down on the pillow and shut it down every single night. For 2 months, never once did you, and I had a spare bedroom. You could have slept in there. And you slept on the leather couch the whole time.
Well, that all sounds very exciting because I haven't left the house in a very long time.
Yeah.
But no, like, well, with the cooking, and like I literally would work all day and then I'd go to the grocery store because I'd get off earlier because I'd start so early. It started like 6 a.m. or whatever. So I get off early. I go grocery shopping, pick out dinner, and see what inspired me. And then I would cook a dinner with my $99 a day, and then I'd feel like I paid rent.
It was the best deal I could have ever imagined. We loved it. It was, and I mean, you cook like wild stuff. Like you weren't making like, oh, we're having like spaghetti tonight. Like you were making like weird international dishes. It was delicious. It was awesome.
Okay.
And, like when we were like, oh, this sucks.
Okay. All right. Well, now we should make this more of a hockey podcast again. So,
Right.
I'm happy. I've seen you send me some photos. Now you're turning into a foodie. I like it. I dig it. So I just hope you continue on. But here we go. So, where are you originally from? And your minor hockey to up to junior. Where did you go? What'd you do?
I hail from Burlington, Ontario. That's like where I'm from. It's where I grew up until I went to Western. So I just grew up playing minor hockey in like the Burlington Minor Hockey Association. Mostly like AAA, played AA for a year, and then then when I was like Bantam or wherever our draft year was back then, I was drafted to Mississauga in the Ontario League. And that was back when like Mississauga won, I don't know, they won like 7 games or 9 games one year.
Wasn't Don Cherry the coach?
Yes, Don Cherry was the coach. And I remember like guys were, it's funny, I have a handwritten letter from Don Cherry my mom gave me in a big basket of old hockey stuff. But anyway, guys like agents were writing papers and saying like, get my kid out of here. Like it was apparently not a great situation at the time. And I didn't know anything about anything. So I played tier 2 for the Burlington Cougars and the old OP. I don't even know if that's what the Ontario Junior League is anymore, but I played in like the Ontario Provincial League. Played there when I was 16 and then played there my next year when I was 17, when I had a pretty good idea that I wasn't really interested in playing in the Ontario League and wanted to go to college. And minor hockey was awesome. Our team was we were like a juggernaut. We all played like in the winter together. All the kids from around here, we all played summer hockey and like tournament hockey together with some other kids from a few other teams in our league. And then I got to junior. We were awful. And it was basically like my Bantam team was like our junior team with a few old guys mixed in. And we came in last our first year, and I think we missed the playoffs by like a extraordinary margin. Same thing second year, we were not a whole lot better. So junior hockey was a little bit rough, but it was fun playing my hometown. Like rink was down the street from my house. Didn't have to move away from home, which I don't think I probably was overly prepared to do when I was 16 or 17. And
I don't think you were prepared.
It's kind of pretty minor hockey.
I don't think you were prepared to move out of your house when you were, however old you were when we went to Western Michigan. I don't think even by the time we left Western Michigan, you were still prepared to live out of the house.
Well, it's funny because my mother to this day, Carol Dwyer, will always say that, or Carol Wells, pardon me. Well, sorry. She'll always say that her regret is that she let me go to college because I left high school a year early, right? Like I'm a year younger than you, and I could have gone to OAC and gone to high school and then gone to college a year after. And like, I pushed to be like, hey, like if they want me to go now, like let's roll. And I mean, I didn't know anything about college hockey before we got to Western. Like we all learned on the fly, or at least I did. Like no one from around where I live. There's one guy from Burlington who I knew well, who played at Vermont. But other than that, I didn't know anything about college or any of that stuff. So my mom always says that her one regret is that she should have made me stay home for another year, because she thinks that I probably could have used a year of seasoning down in the minors before I headed up at the big club, you know?
Well, yeah, like I had that. I had the same situation when I decided not to go to Northeastern, to stay home for another year, because I decided I just wasn't ready. And they were trying to press the fact that, like, if you have an opportunity to come as a true freshman. If you want to play pro, you got to come as a true freshman. And like, everybody gets better at different times. And it's not always right to always rush it, right?
No, I definitely agree. And if I like really think back on it, and I mean, and this is the funny thing about like being a hockey player and like going through, you can think back to be like, there's things that I would have done differently when I was like 14 years old. And sometimes when you're 14 years old, it was like, I probably played like too much hockey back then and worried about it too much. But then you think and you're like, oh, well, if I could be a junior player again, like what would I do differently in junior knowing what I know now? Then it's like, what would I do differently in college knowing what I know? What would I, in all the way up to pro? And then it's over. And it's like, you look at other people and look at, kind of think about your own situation and all the different stuff. And you would think about it differently, like when you get older. But to me, it was, I honestly, like I said, like I played double A one year. So I played triple A my whole life. Then when I got to, I don't know, whatever minor Bantam is, I was like 14. I get cut like out of nowhere. And I was kind of like, what do you mean? Like, and to me, like it never crossed my mind being like, oh man, like how am I ever going to go to college or get drafted to the OHL? Like I could care less at that point in my life about what I did after I was done playing minor hockey. Like to me, playing minor hockey at that point was like, I don't know, we win all the time, so that's fun. Like all of my buddies are on this team, and like my group of friends are the kids you grow up with, and we play baseball together, we play hockey together in the winter, we play summer hockey together. Like that's like your life, right? And that was what like at that point, that was like my big, that's what like really concerned me, I guess. And then I have a little sister, Steph, you know, who is a back in that time, she was like a very like high level figure skater, like going to like junior national championships, and like had at a time thinking that she might be like a big deal national level figure skater. And my mom was the president of the figure skating club in Burlington, which is like a huge figure skating club. So she had found this trainer to start training like the athletes that are these up and coming, that a few really, really like high profile junior skaters. So then he trained one hockey player. And then my mom was like, well, I got cut. Like, do you want to work out with him? And I was kind of like, yeah, because I want to go hang out with my buddies again. And then that was when like you're 14, 15, like you start to grow a little bit. And then I got to Bantam, like my OHL draft year. And like, I made my team back again, and then like had a coach who like thought I was great, and he was a good coach, and like gave me way more opportunities than I'd ever had growing up in minor hockey. And like all of a sudden, like OHL teams want to talk to me all the time, and people are talking to my parents all the time. And I was like, what's going on here? Like I didn't know anything about that kind of stuff. And then
hold on. So what year is this?
I'm in like when I'm in minor Bantam and Bantam.
And you got cut at the start of the year, and then you start working out with this guy, and now
I got cut the year before. So I got cut in minor Bantam, played double A for a year.
Now you're in major Bantam, you worked out with some guy, and now you're getting.
And yeah, Larry Justanis, sports specific training. Shout out. Sorry, Vex, competitor in Canada. But then
hey, no free ads. I don't know him. No free ads. I don't know him.
No free ads, Larry. But then everything just kind of like went really fast for me for a while. Like all of a sudden they were like, I was drafted pretty high, and like, I'm playing junior A, which I never even really thought was a thing. Like, I never even imagined that I would be playing junior hockey at all, let alone like it just really, really happened quickly. And then college teams are talking to me, and then the next thing you know, I'm going to Western. Like, it was like warp speed for like 3 years through hockey. And admittedly, going back to like, you think back about it, what would you do differently? Like, there's a lot of things you wish you knew more about, like that process and like what you were doing, but I was just flying blind, and my parents were kind of flying blind, and we were just kind of trying to do the best we could. And then the Western thing came around. I got passed off from another school that I was too, not smart enough to get into. So I got dished over to Western through a connection, and then here we are. I'm living with Brent.
No, so you said you just weren't into Mississauga because Cherry was there and you heard it wasn't a good situation. So then how do you end up at Western Michigan? Like, how did they approach you? And then why did they want you to go so young? Because like back then it wasn't that normal to go as a true freshman. Like most guys were going later on. Nowadays they commit when they're like 12 years old and like they haven't even reached puberty, and they're like, I'm pretty sure when that guy gets taller, he's going to be a good player. So let's sign him to a scholarship now before his balls drop. And like back then, there was 20-year-olds in junior B getting scholarships. It's not like that anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, the Mississauga thing, it wasn't even like they treated me great, and like I actually like loved interacting with like the people that I interacted with there, like the guys who were like the president, the GM, and stuff like that. Like they wanted me to play there, and that was like my first kind of peek into like what hockey is and like a little bit of a bigger scale, I guess, and that was cool. But I went to Cornell on my first visit because I played junior with a kid who was like brilliant, good player. He ended up going there, and when they were recruiting him, they started watching me, and I had played like 5 junior A games, period. And I mean, like junior went, our team sucked, but like I did pretty well. And they, unofficial visits, because I was too young to even go to a school at that point. Like I was 16, like you're not allowed to do a real visit until whatever date of your year 17 or whatever. So I went and like checked it out. And I mean, I don't even remember if we ever played at Cornell. I remember playing Cornell at home.
We did. Yeah, we did.
Like their rink is wild, like obscene scene at Cornell Lani Ice Arena or whatever it's called. So I want to watch my first college game ever there. And I remember being there with my old man and being like, I am not going to play in Mississauga. Like I am playing at this school in 2 years. And my dad was kind of like, this is incredible. And you know what our folks are like? He's like, yes, I can't wait to come back down here. It's going to be awesome. And then it didn't work out for academic reasons. Obviously, it's an Ivy League school, and I'm not really an Ivy League guy. At least I certainly didn't have the wherewithal to like pay much attention to those types of things at that point in my life. And then they had their assistant coach used to play at Western, and that's how they kind of like flipped me over and said, hey, there's this kid, it's not going to work out with us. You should go take a look. And then Western started coming up and watching me all the time. And there was like, I had a few other options, like with a few other CCHA schools. And I mean, Western, I went down, watched them play Maine, beat them and tied them, 3rd team in the country. I was like, man, these guys rule. They're wicked. Great. I mean, we know our school had an awesome environment and a wicked rink and great fans. It was a really cool place to play and a really cool place to watch games. So I was kind of like, got really enamored by it. And from like, I guess the excitement level, and like, I was like, wow, like, again, like it moved really quickly, and it was just like, how can I not go to this place? And yeah, so, and I was ready to go. I didn't want to wait. There's other schools that were like, hey, we'd want you to come, but we need a year. And
you didn't want
at that point in my life, I was like, forget it. I'm out of here. Let's go to Western. Go Broncos.
I mean, it's hard to turn down a full ride and say, I'm going to wait a year. Like, that's like just putting on the brakes. So like, I'm not good at putting on the brakes with anything either. So like, I would get that. The only reason I didn't go a year earlier was because they didn't offer full rides at Northeastern, because they said only one guy on their hockey team got a full ride. Didn't make sense to me, but I thought they were full of shit. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone's like, when it comes to picking schools, and like, again, you can always look back and be like, what would have happened if I hadn't gone, and or if I'd gone a different way or whatever like that. But when, to me, like, I mean, obviously, like, my college, I split it into two. Like, my college experience was awesome. Like, I loved going to school in Kalamazoo. I loved going to Western. Like, we had a great, I always thought from like a group of guys perspective, like year after year, we had a pretty great team, like, you know, for the most part. But like from a hockey perspective, obviously, like, it wasn't the greatest 4 years of my life. Like, I was an in and out guy, like never really got like a really big opportunity to play a lot. And like that, like, frustrated me. And like, you know, there's certain feelings that you have about certain parts of the college hockey experience that never leave you. Because I mean, for me, like, that was the crescendo of my career. Like, that was the best thing I ever did in hockey. Like, no disrespect to where I played after, but that was kind of the top of the mountain for me. But at the end of the day, if you like really measure it all kind of on balance, like, I mean, I could get around pretty well, but was I going to the NHL? Like, I don't know. I probably wasn't ever really anywhere near going to the NHL regardless of what I did. So what do you have at the end, right? At the end, you have, you know, you made a lot of good friends out of it, and you got a lot of really good memories out of it. And there was good hockey parts about it where, you know, that I can have good memories of it, but strange experience. And
You are like, I don't even have to say anything. Jeez, like, you already went through Western Michigan. You're into pro now. Like, holy moly, like, slow down. Okay. Jeepers creepers. We'll get there. Okay. Just relax.
Right,
just relax.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, just breathe. Okay. Listen, I want to know, okay, because you already talked about going to Western Michigan and everything. I was going to say, like, so after junior, okay, so you made that decision, you went OHL, so you go, or whatever, you go to Western Michigan. What I was going to say was, okay, so you're going to Western Michigan, and now I believe it's orientation, or perhaps it's picking you up to actually drive you to school in Reed Yancey's boom boom, the old Honda Civic with the big muffler, and he would get the boom boom going, and he picked you up to go to university.
So the story goes, this is a very important story in the lore of our group's friendship. So the story goes, I call Jimmy, our coach, and he tells me that there's a guy who lives in Tavistock and that he is driving himself down. And my dad was kind of like, you know, I was 17, like, been driving for like 4 months. I'm like, hey, Dad, I need the keys to the truck. I'm driving to Kalamazoo. And he was like, nah, I don't know about that. Maybe I'll drive you. I'm like, you're not coming, obviously. Like, I'm not showing up with my dad for orientation. So I call our coach, Jimmy, and he's like, there's this kid in Tavistock, Reed Yancey, who's coming next year. I believe he's driving down. Maybe you guys can link up. So the first thing that's going through my mind is, where is Tavistock? And where would I meet him? Like, if you told me that Tavistock was in Thunder Bay at that point, I would have believed you. I've never heard of Tavistock, Ontario. So I call up, I go and look him up online. And I go on, if you remember the website Canada 411, which is where you used to look up people's home phone numbers. So I put in Tavistock, Yancey, search. There's like 42 Yanceys in Tavistock. And if you drive through Tavistock, everything is called Yancey Home Hardware, Yancey Feed and Seed, Yancey Pavestone Plus. Everything is Yancey. So I called through like 4 or 5 different people being like, is Reed home? They're like, doesn't live here. And I'm like, is Reed home? And they're like, oh, Ross's kid, he doesn't live here. Finally, I get Reed on the phone, and we arranged to meet up at the Sweeberg truck stop, which I know you know the Sweeberg truck stop. And so Reed, I'm standing there waiting for him, like on the curb, basically. And he rolls up in the black Civic, and he's got the seat way back. And he rolls down the window, but not a full roll down. He does like the roll down like this, like the roll down. So you can just see half of his eyes like this. And he's leaned way back. And he's like, you Dwyer? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Reed? He's like, yeah. He's like, get in. So he stuffed my stuff or whatever in. And when he got in there, he goes, you like the beats in this boom boom?
Was he wearing the Chicago Skyline shirt?
He was not wearing his Johnny Blaze Chicago Skyline. He was more tactical that day. For like evening wear.
Because Reed Yahtzee, he had a shirt that was the Chicago Skyline all the way around. And my God, he looked gorgeous in it. But do you want...
he looked...
So hold on. So I got to tell you about the first time I met Reed Yahtzee, because you have do you got any beats in this boom boom or whatever was said there, right? What was he saying? What is that? What he said? No, what was it?
This story has been obviously manipulated over the years a little bit, and no one's ever accused me of letting the facts get in the way of a good story. But the line is, you got any beats in this boom boom? But why would he have asked me if I have any beats when I was in his boom boom, right? You're right.
It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so the night I met Reed Yahtzee, was I'm playing in a Junior B All-Star game, and they make a team of our league. So our league's playing the other Junior B league, and me and Yahtzee are both All-Stars, and he showed up in full black leathers. Like I'm talking like I'm talking pants, I'm talking coat, I'm talking...
He was not wearing...
He was full leather.
See, I'm pretty positive I've seen the picture, and that I know the leather jacket. He was wearing the leather jacket. I've seen it. I know the leather jacket.
Are you saying that he wasn't wearing leather pants? What was he wearing for pants?
I don't know, but I can't believe that he had a pair of leather pants.
He was full leather. And I'm telling you, I'm like, so this is going to be my like the guy I'm playing with for the next 4 years. Like we both have committed to Western Michigan. And then all of a sudden our friendship blossomed and he was our closest friend. But like, and he made a few changes. He didn't show up to Western Michigan in full leathers, but who knows what goes on in Tavistock, right?
You know what? I made several trips to Tavistock with Rito for our birthdays are very close to each other. So we would go home for a weekend and he would party with my buddies for a night, and we'd go to Tavi and kind of hang out and party with his buddies for a night. Tavistock is, I mean, you're obviously from Elmira, where I've had a couple restovers as well. Tavi is a fun town to be in. It's you'd be surprised at how much mischief you can find in Tavi if you go looking for it. But Reed is one thing about, and again, like going back to, and I always say this too about college, like we were very lucky that we had we had a crew of me, you, Daryl, and Yance, of where like we were all together for 4 years. We lived together. Even when we didn't live together, we were living together. And we had other good, we had other great guys who were buddies with our team. And like we had Chew, we had Bubbles, like we had a crew, Galley, like we had a crew of dudes who we went for a good chunk of our college career together, which I think it was good. And that's why, like, I always say, like, your college buddies are different a little bit to me. Like, you get your buddies, your high school buddies are a little bit different. Your other buddies are a little bit different. But your college buddies are their own breed.
Like our roommates, our group. So that's where we are right now, right? So we're into your Western Michigan days. And so basically, I want this is about your career here, right? We're not just telling stories here. So we're going through your career. So now you're at Western Michigan. And I think the group of us, like me, you, Daryl, and Yancey, being in the same class, like at Western Michigan, like that is just the most bizarre thing because like we all have different relationships between us, but the four of us together is just, it's just something special.
It really, it's, I mean, and I sincerely hope that everybody else who we've ever played with have the same crew, but like, it is true. Like we do our little, we try to get together once a year, whatever. Like I try to see you once a year. That's just not with the rest of the crew, but like we'll try to come up and see you guys or whatever. Like I go and see Yancey, I see Daryl whenever he's home. Like, but when we do all hang out, like it's the best time ever. Like that's the best night of the year when we get to hang out with our college buddies again. And you know, naturally, but we were fortunate in that regard that we did have a good crew. And it wasn't always, you know, everything wasn't puppy dogs and ice cream when we were in college. So it helps when, you know, when you got a good set of guys to be with and live with and play with and everything else with.
Yeah, we literally learned about life together. Like you were 17 or whatever when you got there. I was actually, I think I was 18, I think.
Yeah. Yancey just turned 18 when we got there.
Right. So it like we were all just learning about life, but like some of the things we learned were pretty interesting. But okay, here are some other things I got here. Well, we're on this is the time. So we've talked about our special bond, and maybe our team did not perform up to what we wanted. So basically, for me, I hate it because when we went to Western Michigan was pretty good. Like they were pretty good.
Yeah.
And by the time we left, we weren't good. And like it still bugs me, right? But like it was like that, but like there were things and it wasn't good at some points between coaches and players and how everything was working. And losing does that though, and losing just snowballs. And that's kind of what happened in college was like losing snowballed. And then by the end of it, man, the practices we were having where we were just doing suicides every practice, like if you took a bad penalty, the whole team did a suicide, but then you did an extra one. It was all just, it was tough to, and it was great though that we had each other to go through those things with, and we always had each other, and we at least didn't make it a bad time. We at least somehow made college fun, even with some of the things we had to deal with, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because if you really think back to like, if you think back to what our team like really was, and when you get into, it's like I never knew anything about players from anywhere else. Like all of a sudden there'll be like Gally's on our team. And I'm like, man, where'd that kid play? Like, oh, he plays in Chicago. I'm like, I didn't know there was good hockey players in Chicago. Like I'm sure there's a couple, but I didn't know there was a bunch. And like kids from Michigan, and then you're like, oh my God, like how many good kids live in Minnesota? Like you guys play high school hockey there? Like I had kids on my high school team who learned how to skate on the first day of practice. Like, and it's just, there's people everywhere. But if you even look at like our team, like we're all from Ontario, and like our whole recruiting class is from Ontario for the most part. And like you look at the kids that we brought in just our year, like I'm a scrub in our recruiting class, and they thought that I was going to be good. But like we had so many great players, like you, like leading leagues in scoring, like you, Jans, Daryl, all like sick players, all stars.
Vince Bellissimo.
Vinny was drafted to show already and like he tied Thomas Vanek in scoring the year before in the USHL. Like, and then you look at other guys in our team. I mean, when we like first got there.
Which by the way, Vinny's coming on the podcast. He reached out to me.
Dude,
I no, man, that guy is part of the reason why I got to Germany is actually the German team saw that I had more points than him and he was ripping up the DL. So they were like, well, if you scored more than him at college, like surely the hell you could play in the second league.
Wait for you to have that conversation with Vinny, because I have not talked to Vinny in probably a decade. We went and met up randomly and had dinner in Toronto at a bar on a patio, like literally right after college. And I think he talked to me about wanting to maybe coach with them in Toronto, but like I couldn't do it at the time, but I lost touch with them. But I can imagine that when you talk about that story, that will piss Vinny off.
Why? He's the one that got me the job, and he was the one doing better than me in professional, where you actually get paid to play. Like,
no, there was, and one thing I'll say about
we had a competitive. Me and him were very competitive.
You two had a very competitive feud in terms of who was the top dog out on the ice, and you guys both did very well in college, and that was probably good, but. What I was saying before, like if you look at like the players on our team, and again, like remember Jeff Campbell? Remember how sick Soupy was? He was the hardest player to play against in a practice in the history of hockey. He used to do that start-stop move in the corner where he burned me on that 750 times in a row in the 3 years or 2 years that I played with him. But there was a lot of good players, but it literally never. It's crazy that we didn't do better. I always kind of felt like I felt like if you stacked our team up against teams that we like wouldn't do, and we had shitty coaches, but the rest of it, I agree with you. It's a bit of a kind of like a regret, and it bothers you a little bit that it should have gone better probably especially during a couple of those 4 years than it really did.
So we're going to get into happier things here in a second, but I now that we're on this topic, I think I should like say something because like some people, like they were at the start of their coaching careers, like Brooksy. I think Brooksy is a good coach. And like, then there was Kenner, good guy. He tried as hard as he could. But like he wasn't a hockey coach. He hadn't really been there and done it. Like I think he was doing his MBA at the time. Like he was occupied with that. He had a young child. Like his passion, I think he was doing that. And like the coaching maybe wasn't to the level that Western Michigan realized what you need to compete in NCAA level. But like, I cannot complain about a single thing because those coaches they gave me so much ice time. They gave me everything I needed to succeed. I always wondered like, well, like, what if I would have gone to one of the bigger schools? Like, would I play this much? Would I score so much? Like, because I didn't know. I didn't know, but like, I can't say anything bad, but we'll get into that in my episode. So anyways, go ahead.
I have obviously a different perspective on some of those things. And again, if you go back to what I said earlier about like, are there things I could have done differently to put myself in a different position if I had like known better or like, was more 100% only worried about hockey? Maybe. I don't know. Did I ever feel like I was like doing anything or working less hard than anyone else? Like I never really thought that. And there was like times where I got opportunities and I thought I did really well. And then, and not to like make it like overly simplistic, but like the coach that recruited me left after our first year. And then, I mean, every kid that he ever recruited, we all got to hang out for a while, right? I mean, and that's natural. Your coaches are going to, you know, bet on their own horses, whatever. It was one thing that you mentioned. I could never see, like, could you imagine? And again, I'm not out here to like throw mud at anybody, but could you imagine like like there's no college hockey program in America that would hire the coaching staff that we have. Like that's not the level of coaching that Division I college hockey demands. And there were honestly like there were times where it was so miserable for me playing at Western. Like there's one thing that literally the number one memory I have, and there's a lot of good memories, don't get me wrong, but the number one negative memory I remember there's two. Remember the game we played at U of M when we were freshmen and we lost 10-3? We were losing 7-0 at the end of the first period. Jimmy tried to come in and kick a garbage can. It was bolted to the ground. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
The only thing I remember was that flippin' song that they play in Michigan. And like literally it just kept playing. Like every time I'd sit down on the bench, the song would play. And I was like, what is this school? And like, who are these people I'm playing? Like, what is happening?
And like half of them are in the show 2 years later. We always used to joke that we never heard the end of the song. So they'd get halfway through, they'd score again and fire it up from the top. But I remember my like we're playing at U of M. I'm in the lineup and, you know, young kid. My dad comes down with a bunch of buddies. They go to Ann Arbor, go to Yost, like wicked place. Like they're all having a great time, like such a cool experience. We get lit. And I think I was like +1 in a 10-3 loss. Like I didn't play bad, but we got pumped. I'm the 6D.
You had your guy,
the next night in Kalamazoo. Yeah, I had my guy. So I'm out the next time. And I remember that, like, I remember as like a young 18-year-old, like that, like embarrassed me. Like I felt embarrassed in front of like my dad and his buddies and stuff. And I was like, it made me feel like shit. And I was like, all right, well, we're in a different world now. Like we're in the big time a little bit where no one cares about your feelings. Like, and I pretty much had that figured out at that point. But the second one was, do you remember, I don't even remember where you guys went, but you had traveled somewhere our junior year. And it was going into our junior year that I stayed at school and I worked out like a psycho, was doing like 2 days with Daryl, like gained like 30 pounds, was actually in like legitimate like college hockey player, 6'4". I was like 230, like I was big. And I thought I came into camp like ready to rock, like I'm going to be a big part of the team. I'm done being an in and out guy. And I played 9 games that year. And I remember at the start of the year, you guys had left to go to, I don't even remember where, somewhere on like a 5-day trip, like Alaska or Nebraska or something. And I had gone because Boots had graduated at that point, or maybe it would have been our senior year because Boots had graduated. Boots was playing in the coast. He was playing in Columbus where I ended up, and he got called up playing Toledo. And I drove out to Toledo to go watch him and stay with them for the night and go watch him play in the coast because I had nothing to do. And I remember watching that game and being like, I think I could throw my stuff on and be like a 3D man on this team. Like the first East Coast game I'd ever seen. And I'm like, it's good, but like I can keep up with this all day. And then I like went back and I kind of was like a little bit like rejuvenated about it. And then got in for a game. I was like out for another game where I was like, what is going on here? Like I felt like I deserved to have more of a chance at that point. And I got scratched right before a game one time. And my mom, my sisters, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, all drove to Kalamazoo because I'm like, I'm going to be playing tonight for sure. There's no way I'm coming out. So my mom's like, we're getting in the car and coming down because we're going to take advantage of getting to see you. I get scratched right before the game. And I remember standing up with my dad in the stands and sitting there and like not even paying attention to the game at all, being the most miserable human being on the planet. And I remember looking to my dad and like knowing that, you know, for everyone's dad, when you get to that point of like your hockey life, it's important to your old man. And I knew it was important to my old man. And I was like, I remember turning to my dad and be like, I hate it here. Like, I don't want to play hockey anymore at all. And I was like, I'm going to stay because I'm on a scholarship. I'm not an idiot. I'm not coming home so you can pay for me to go to Brock or some other school. So I'm going to stick it out, but I hate it here. And I don't want to play anymore. I'm not trying to play when college is over. Like, I just want to get a job. And my old man being like, you know, I got you. Like, I can understand you're frustrated or whatever. And that was kind of, not to do your job for you, but to segue it, that was kind of like why I ended up playing in the Central League and then ended up playing in Georgia. Because it was like the end of the college experience for me, and the way it went sometimes I felt unfairly with our coaches was I was like, I need to get out of this type of situation and into a situation where like it's actually enjoyable. And I guess I feel that sometimes the people around us in our college life were contributing to that feeling at some points, diplomatically to say.
Yeah, like, and the weird part about the hockey world is like, it's the same as the real business world. Is like when people take over things, they want to bring in their own people. And like when you say, I know who you're talking about, Garrow, when he left after our freshman year, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't really the one that recruited me. But like when he leaves, like he's the guy, he's the scout, just like in pro, the scout that really fights for someone once he's not around, fighting for you, saying, this guy's good, this guy can do this guy can do that. Once that guy's not there, he's not there. And then there's nobody fighting for you. And then all of a sudden, when they're talking about this or that, then there's nobody on your side. And like, I do remember the summer that you got all jacked up and you'd have your white shell necklace around, right? Like make your chippy, you didn't have chippy tits back then. You had like, you had pecs, you were swole. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But I mean, but again, it got to the point by our junior year, at the end of our junior year, it was like my peak of being like, I hated hockey, and going to the rink every day was the worst part of my life. And I think as we got past that year, I got a bit more of an opportunity our senior year. And I got to play a lot, especially in the first half of the year. Then when things started to go sour and our team sucked and they were playing young kids, and I knew I was going to be the guy who got scapegoated for a lot of stuff. Like, I'm always going to be the first guy to get kicked out of the lineup. But at that point I was kind of like, we're going to graduate in the summer. The university club pool will be open in like 2 months. I don't really care anymore. And I always tried to pride myself on being like, and this is why, like, overall, when I look back, like the Western Michigan hockey experience, I try to pride myself on, like, I hope that people would say I was like a good teammate. Like, I didn't bitch and moan and like go and like cause a scene about things that sucked for me, because I mean, whatever. But I'd like to think that at the very least, if like, you know, guys we played with were like, remember Stretch, to be like, yeah, that guy was cool. Like, he was a cool guy to have on the team. You know, we had great relationships, made a lot of friends. We had a lot of fun. You know, there was highs and lows of hockey. But at the end of the day, it's all positive.
Okay. And you know what? Every single guy on that team, every single guy you talk to loves Stretchy. Every single guy. And you know what?
And
it's kind of what?
I'm the first guy to be requested on the Two Whales and Hockey Tales with Wally podcast.
That did come online. Yeah, there were people that requested this. And you know what? This podcast is all about giving the people what they want. And You know what? Here he is, folks. Here he is. So I think the reason why you're requested is because you're just a dandy, and you would like, as a teammate, even when you're in a position like that, which sucks, man. Like, because I was, my hockey thing in college was different than yours, and we were living right beside each other in the same place. It was a very different time for both of us. But like, so other than that, like, I got the time because we lived together. We got me, you, the Yance Hole, and Daryl, who I got enough history with him. He's gonna have to come on here and do his thing, Mr. Dr. Daryl. So hold on. Okay, hold on. Slow down. So he's coming on. But where was I here? So they made us run 2 miles in 12 minutes. And they told us, if you guys want to play on this team, if you guys want to be a part of this team, if you guys want to get ice time, you guys have to run 2 miles in 12 minutes. Well, guess what? I'm not a Navy SEAL and I'm not a very fast runner. So can you please explain that, Summer, to everyone?
Yeah, when they told us that we had to run 2 miles in 12 minutes and we both basically said, smell you later, and basically ignored it.
I did the best I could. I got 13 and a half.
I did I was 12 and 15 seconds. I wasn't that far off.
Shut your filthy mouth. You weren't even close. Are you kidding me?
No, I am not lying. I was a straight away ahead of Malsey, who didn't make it, but our coach gave it to him because he couldn't make us all look like jackasses. So he got a courtesy click on the clock. But that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's funny because you know what I always think about with that kind of thing is, remember, so our old teammate and buddy Mo, who had come to us from winning a national championship in Minnesota. And I remember when he got there, he was like, this is wild. And we were like, what? Like, you guys don't do Navy SEAL training before, after, and every single minute between practices and games, even during the off season? And he was like, no. He was like captain's practices. He's like, our coach is like, I'll see you on the first day of practice. Captain's practices are for captains to run. I don't need to bag you for 90 minutes, 4 days a week. But we did literally Navy SEAL training to the point where a third of the team would be injured going into the season because we were wildly doing God knows what. In me back then, I was just skin stretched over some bones. I couldn't be doing Olympic lifting and stuff like that. I was risking major injury every time we stepped into the gym. But yeah, and then after we finished, I'm kind of proud of myself that I thought I did well. And then he just berated us in front of everybody about how we were letting the team down. And everybody that summer had goals. Ours was the worst goal ever. There was one guy who, Jeff Pierce, his goal, because he wasn't flexible, and that was when our assistant coach became a yoga instructor. That was when he couldn't do anything. So his goal was that he needed to be able to touch his toes sitting on his ass. He just needed to be able to reach forward and touch his toes. That was his goal. And our goal was Navy SEAL training.
Now you're making it snowball.
Nobody else will play. He's like, you won't play until you do it. And then no one got it. Everyone played except for me.
I wasn't allowed to play PK because they said I wasn't in shape enough to play PK, but and for a couple weeks at least. So no, but oh man, where was I going there? Okay, so the 2 mile run, the workouts we did though were so incredible. You're right though, everybody was injured. The whole team, half the guys would be injured with shin splints. We'd be running 5 miles a day, and we were all so miserable, with the hockey side of life, that we had to find an outlet because hockey was so miserable. But like,
do you remember when he made us run 5 miles? Then we got back. He made us run 5 miles the other way. We had to do the track again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, it was intense. And like some people just aren't, it was very old school. It was very much not like the way it should be. And,
We were like the Russian Red Army.
well, it wasn't even that though. It was like it made us not like hockey, right? Like it made us not like going to the rink. We used to love going to the rink. I know I used to love it. And there was a time there where, like, especially when the seasons were over, as soon as before the season and after the season, like it was like, don't you lose tonight, or else next week you are going to run 5 miles, and then the next day you're going to run 5 more miles because you didn't win tonight. So you better win tonight.
And that was why and again, we won't get into the specifics of everything. That was why our senior year was, I'll tell you this story. I've probably told you this before, but I got a phone call our senior year from about halfway through the year. And if you recall, we had a bit of an issue around Christmas time of our senior year with per diem. And who was going to eat at the local buffet and what kids were getting full per diem, if you recall.
No, I don't recall.
I do. So we as seniors and juniors who Jimmy was mad at was we got, I forget what it was, but we got like a partial amount of the per diem money, and then we had planned dinners at like a buffet restaurant in town. And we were like, so you're telling me and Yancey that we're too fat and that we need to eat more healthy, and instead of getting per diem like the juniors or the sophomores and the freshmen who are like kind of a little bit more pro Jimmy at that point, that was a thing. And I won't get too much into all of what the aftermath was, but I get called into a meeting one time with a couple other coaches, and they were like, we think that you have a good read on the room and that people, you would know what's going on. Like, what's the state of things? And I just was like, I don't know, semi-honest and being like, well, not necessarily great. And the team's probably not in a good like spot from like a position of, just overall morale or whatever. And I was like, and then I came out of the lineup the next day, and I never played another college game after I had that meeting. That was the last game I ever played. It was on like a Tuesday after we got back from a road trip, and I never played ever again. And that was kind of, everything spun out of control at the end of our college career. Like, I feel like by the time that we left, it was like,
did he coach did he coach another year after us though?
1 or 2, yeah.
Like it was toxic, man. Like it was, man, they were recruiting Chris Frank, who is a guy that kills people and takes penalties. And every stupid penalty, our entire team had to do a suicide. And the guy who took the penalty had to do a suicide while the whole team watched. And sometimes Chris took a couple penalties a weekend because that's who he was. That's the player they recruited. And he would take those penalties, and then he would make our whole team skate to the point where it's like, what we hate being here, Chris hates that he's done this. And it was like, well, what are we all doing here? And it was nuts at the end.
Yeah, it got to the point where I think we were all just happy it was over. And I think when we went into the playoffs our last year and we won our first round and then went to Lake State and then we lost. And I remember when that was done, I think we were all kind of like deep breath being like, I can't wait to get home because we never have to go back to playing hockey here again. And again, it wasn't whatever. I mean, it was a long time ago, and I think the game has changed a lot, and I think the way that you coach players has changed a lot. And the 15 years since we played college, but you certainly wouldn't see the type of program that we were living in today. And I think it was probably a little bit weird at the time, but we didn't know any better either.
No, and you know what though? Like, I really do think they were all doing the best they could too, and that's all I'll say about
that's
that.
true. That's right.
I think it's time to move on though, so let's move on. Okay, so we had our college careers, and that happened, but during our college careers, I think it is, while we're living through that and we're not winning many games, we decide to have some fun in the spring of, was it after my junior year or was it after our sophomore year that we decided to put together a roller hockey team with our good friend Daryl Moore and Paul Shahura, who are both from Brantford. They're friends. There it is right there, the Canadian Cold Shop jersey. But this is audio right now until I guess the YouTube channel's released now, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, we decide to put together a team from Brantford of Chewy and Daryl's buddies from home that grew up playing roller hockey. And I had grown up playing roller hockey as well with Daryl. And I don't think you had ever played, right? So can we get into that?
We absolutely can, because it's the high point of my hockey career for sure. So, like we were talking about earlier, the ice hockey portion of my career was scuttled, to say the least. So I vividly remember the phone call. Somebody called, either you, Daryl, or Chewy. I think maybe Chewy. And it was some coach, the guy who coached like a team in Detroit, and was like, hey, we're putting a team together, blah, blah, blah. I think there are some kids, maybe. No, I don't know if that was the team that had kids from Michigan or Michigan State on it. But he's putting a team together. He's like, do you want to play? He's like, Chewy was like, yeah, I'll come to Detroit and play. And he's like, Daryl want to play? And Daryl was like, yeah, I'll play. And then, Brent want to play with you guys? And you were like, yeah, I'll play. And I was standing there, and I was like, bros, like, what am I going to do all weekend while you're gone? Like, and then somebody came up with the bright idea of like, screw those guys. We're going to start our own team. So then we call all the Brantford guys, and Chew throws it all together. And next thing you know, they're like, do you want to play? I'm like, I'm coming. I'm like, let me on the team. I've never played before. So in the warm-up of the first game, Chewy was like teaching me how to stop on rollerblades. Like, I didn't know you could hockey stop on a pair of rollerblades. And then we had, I don't even remember what happened in the qualifier. I don't think we won. I think we came in like second. I think we might have lost in the final or something. But we qualified to go to Narch, and then next thing you know, we're down at the Lani Kai in Fort Myers, Florida, wherever the hell we were.
So let me be the host here and give the background story now. So yeah, this is our first time with an on the fly pee. I missed that first part of it because I had to pee. Wow. So yeah, no, I'm back.
Wow.
Yeah. So Narch, the Lani Kai, and we do go from Western Michigan to that tournament in the Dumar Center, I believe it was. We qualify, so we know we can go to the tournament. Stretchy still doesn't know how to play roller hockey. So we start renting roller hockey floors around Kalamazoo, Michigan. Do you remember that? And we were practicing roller hockey in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
We had guys when we found that floor to play on. We had guys that were from, I'd already played. I got through a tournament, so I picked up the basics. right? And, you know, me being, I got an active stick, you know, I'm all over the place. I'm saucing pucks all over the place. But I would get to the red line and I would stop because I knew I got no business down there. Like, I just give the puck to you, Chew, Daryl, or Stockdale and let you do your thing. Or let Tuesday go backhand cheese. So I was like, I got no business down there. I'm just breaking up 2-on-1s. That's my role on this squad, and I love it. Then, when we start renting ice before we go to Narch, we had guys from our team at Western playing. We had me and you and Daryl playing. We had guys driving 5 hours from Brantford to get to our team practice. They were coming down and playing with us too.
Okay. So since this is a double episode, we're running a bit long here. So we're going to have to speed things up. And so we did practice in Kalamazoo. So then we end up going to Fort Myers, Florida for the finals of Narch. And there's teams from all over North America. And I believe even the world, there's teams from France. But so we're staying at the Lani Kai. And I believe there's a round robin portion, which I guess we didn't seem to be too concerned with because we had a pretty swell time staying on the beach, if I don't recall.
I think it was a perfect storm of we were staying at a 1-star beach resort where you didn't want to ever spend any time in your room and there was only so many other places to go. But I remember dropping my bag and coming back an hour later, and there was a line of ants from under the door, up the floor, on the ceiling, split and went into Daryl and I's bags. So I had ants all over my gear the whole tournament. But there's a bunch of other teams staying at that hotel. It was the biggest dump of a hotel in America. And that was like at a point in college.
Hey, hold on. Can you please stop talking about the Lani Kai like this? Like, this was one of the best memories of my life. Like, why are you being so negative right now? Because that place is full of memories and you're talking about how big of a dump it is. I absolutely love it. And that's not even the only time I stayed there. That's a fantastic resort. Who are you? What are you talking about?
The Lani Kai holds more real estate in my heart than any other property in the southern United States. With that said, the Lani Kai was probably condemned at this point. It might not even still be a business. But there was at one point where we were going to take a fire hose and spray the floor to get the sand out of one of the hotel rooms. There were a few things that happened throughout that week that were pretty egregious.
That was Chewy's old man. Nobody knows who Chewy is on this.
I was being ambiguous and not saying who it was, but yes,
right.
It was.
No, I didn't name names. Nobody knows who Chewy is. Like, come on. This is a podcast that's global. Nobody knows who Chewy is. So Chewy's dad came up with a hose and he needed those ants out of there. Like, we got to clean the place up because we weren't living right.
A fire hose.
Well, he cleaned it up.
We played for like 3 days and then stayed for 4 days after, like we won the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup. And we had the best time. And that was like a crew of dudes. And like a lot of the guys who play with us on that team would come to Western all the time. They were all Chewy's best buddies and Daryl's good buddies from home. And like, they were kind of like, they weren't on our team, but they're always around. And like, we knew them all really well. And like, that was just that was the best week literally of my entire life. And other than being married and other than having a baby, but that was like the most refreshing fun I've had playing hockey, albeit it was roller hockey on the beach. That was like the most fun I've literally, like, I was ready to be like, I never want to play hockey ever again. And that was the most fun we possibly could have had. And we had a wicked group of dudes. And it was like, we had like fans who came down to watch. Like, people came who didn't even play on the team, who just came down for the week. And, you know, like all the guys who play with us and coach. And shout out to our boy coach, thinking about you. But that was, and it's funny because I can think back to you when you had your episode with Vex, and he was like, I had to listen to you assholes talk about that every day. And you know what the best part about college was? We would be like, oh, big game tonight on a Saturday. We got tomorrow off. Oh, we're playing Michigan State. Man, we're going to lose by 7. But when we get home, we're going to have a huge Narch victory party for the tournament we won 2 years ago. And we would fill that puppy up full of Coors Light and just act like we just, landed on the moon.
And I probably at my career at that stage, I probably wasn't totally agreeing with what was going on. So I kind of went with it, but it was a strange year. I mean, it was a strange year for me because I had a lot going on. And you were beside me and I knew where you were at, and it was like, wow, this is nuts. But okay, we got to keep going. That's it. We got to keep going, man. We still got another episode to record tonight. So
I can't.
Okay, so after Western Michigan, though, you decide not to go back to Burlington, Ontario, and you decide not to play 1 year just to kick the can. You decide to become a cult legend for the Columbus Cottonmouths. You decide to play 4 years of professional hockey in the Southern Professional Hockey League, if you consider that professional hockey. So what was that like?
It was awesome. So I mentioned earlier about, and it's kind of two things together, but I mentioned earlier about how our buddy Boots, Matt Pano, was playing in Columbus, got called up, and I went and watched him play. I think it was Toledo or wherever it was on the coast. So that's kind of how I ended up there. So I talked to him and he was like, just come down here. And at that point, when we were done playing college, I did not have any interest in being like, I wasn't like, my hockey career was never going to be like my real career. Like I wasn't going to be in the NHL. I knew that. But I also knew that if I wanted to play somewhere, like I could go play somewhere. So he had talked to me about being like, come down here. It's wicked ownership. Like the owners of that team owned Aflac Insurance, Wanda and Shelby, fantastic people, treat us like they're kids. They're wicked, great coach, like awesome guy, Jerome Bichard. And he was like, come on down here. It's a lot of like, it'll be fun. It's hot. We play golf. We have a wicked rink. We have a lot of fans. We get paid pretty well. Everything's great. And I was like, nah, being me, beggars can't be choosers. It's not like I'm calling up, I'm not going to American League camps or anything. I don't have a lot of game tape per se. So I kind of figured and kind of made the decision, like, I don't want to end my career that it sucks and that I hate hockey because Western hockey sucked. And, go somewhere where you can play, you can contribute, have a good time, all that stuff. So I always thought I was going to play in Columbus. Then Daryl and Marv are, two classmates, one being roommate. They have some weird agent and he's sending them to go play in the Central League. And I was like, well, same thing as Narch. I'm like, well, if you guys are going to play in the Central League, what the hell am I doing? Like, I'll just go with Daryl. And like me and Daryl were kind of attached to the hip back then. And I was like, well, if Daryl's going there, like I'm just going to play with Daryl. We can play on the same team. Perfect. It'll be wicked. So we go down there. It is, our visas get screwed up. So we missed the start of camp. It was a sideshow. Daryl gets cut like 3 days later. Marv gets cut like 2 days later. Marv ends up being the goalie of the year and like an MVP candidate for the Central League that year and got cut in like 20 minutes from our team because the whole thing was a joke. Like no one had a fair opportunity. I make the team. I'm there for a couple weeks and then they cut me after like not playing and the team getting blown out. And I played like 4 shifts and then I get cut. And I'm like, at that point I was like, I'm ready to get the hell out of here. So I call Boots and it worked out that they could find me a place in Columbus. And yeah, after that, it was, I definitely wouldn't say I have a cult following. it is it's very, when you move down to play like in the South, and God bless them, and they were really, I have nothing bad to say about anything that ever happened down there. It was awesome. But like the what makes a hockey fan tick there is a little bit different than what makes a hockey fan tick in Canada, you know, like, and not that no one knows anything about the game or anything like that, but because they certainly do. But, you know, fighting was a very big part of our league.
Oh.
And, you know, it's either goal scoring or fighting. And if you do other things in between those two things, like some people thought I was great and some people thought I sucked, so I didn't fight enough, kind of thing. But great experience. I loved it. Columbus is a great place to be.
I totally like agree though. Like if you're not the top scorer and you're not the fighter and you're not the goalie, there's everybody else, right? And yeah, that's interesting. But
I'm very firmly in everybody else.
Okay. I have a couple stories that we never got to before we shut this down, but were there any like stories where like you played a game where you're like, I'm in the Southern Professional League. Like you play a game and you're like, wow, I would have never seen this anywhere else.
As soon as you said that, I can think of probably 50 games out of like the 120 I played. So the first game, now I will preface this by saying, but when I played there 4 years. My first year to my fourth year is like completely different leagues. I've always said that like the top like 4 forwards or 5 forwards on my team in Georgia could have played in the coast all day. And I had guys on my team who would be the best player on teams in the Central. Like there were really good players in that league. Were there players at the bottom who weren't really good? Yes. Were there like a couple spots on every team that were like sometimes wild, you know, fighting goon type guys? For sure, those guys were in that league. But my first game ever, and I remember getting there and I would call my old man after every game before I get on the bus and he'd listen on the radio. And I remember calling my dad after my first game in Columbus and my dad being like, I showed up, did pregame skate, played the home opener the day I got there. And my dad being like, what happened out there? That sounded wild. I had a guy on my team chase around another guy, try to clothesline him on the ice. The guy ducked it. He clotheslined the guy on my team, folded him like a lawn chair. The game ended. We went into the room, and then they just squared off and fought in the middle of the room. We had a team that Daryl played on where I'm pretty sure they dressed a bouncer from a bar as the backup goalie, and he came on the ice with no pads on and tried to fight somebody during warmups. The big time fights would be like, they'd be set up for like weeks at a time. Like it was, there was some pretty, there was bench clearing brawls when I played that were on CNN. Like they were making national news for like, wow, look at what happened in Knoxville. And like every year there would be a kid who got kicked out of the league forever. They made rules there was a guy who played in our league who had played a bunch of NHL games, got in a bunch of trouble, and he was a psycho. And he wasn't even like that tough. Like my tough guy beat him up. And they made rules to just make sure like, oh, you can only play, you know, if you have more than 144 games of experience to get somebody out who had 143 games of experience, like they would just make rules to get rid of guys who did crazy stuff. But man, the Southern Pro League, it always got a worse rap. And the Southern Pro League now is like probably like what the Central League was at its height, like 5 years later or whatever, 10 years later, just because it's always cyclical, those leagues. They fold and blah, blah, blah. But I loved it there. I honestly, again, great coach. Love the guys I play with. I'm tight with a bunch of guys that I still play with down there. Like fantastic ownership. I got treated like gold there, and great fans. We got a lot of support, and we had a really great booster club and stuff like that. And I don't have a bad word to say about the 4 years. And at the end of the day, I had so much fun. And that's all I wanted. Like, I didn't want to go to a team where it's like I'm grinding to be on the second line pair. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll be the 7th D man on a team in the Southern Pro League, but it was great.
Well, I would say we better keep moving because we got a whole nother episode, dude. It's almost like it's getting late here. So, the other thing I got here is, our roommate, will be the last thing we talk about. Then we'll shut her down and we'll start the other one. But like, I think realistically, man, there's nothing to be ashamed of in your career, man. Like you got a Division 1 scholarship. You got your school paid for. You didn't see eye to eye with the coaches for 4 years, but like everything's good. So this is where I want to end it. Okay.
Yeah.
Southern Professional League's all good. I just was curious about it, but like, I want to talk about Fozzie puking on the ice. Because this guy is the only professional NHL athlete I know lately. And I remember him puking on the ice more than I remember him playing for the Chicago Blackhawks.
So, two things there. One, it took me, if I'm being honest, it took me a little while to like not resent some hockey things. And you're right. Like when you get to the end of it and you realize like the benefit of what this has brought you and the people you met, you're right. I'm very proud of what I accomplished, and I'm happy with the way everything turned out and all of those things. So, with regards to Fozzie, I was sitting on my couch in Binbrook, and I remember sitting there looking through my phone, and they're like Scott Foster, and they're like emergency goalie Scott Foster coming in for Chicago. And it clicked in my mind being like, Foz lives in Chicago. And I texted you, Daryl, and Reed in a group chat, and I was like, pretty positive Fozzie's going into a game right now. I think he's the emergency goalie for the Blackhawks, and it's on TSN. And I watched that. I watched the whole rest of it being like, and I haven't kept up with Fozzie a whole lot. I text him on the number I have on my phone being like, are you kidding me? I have no idea if this is your phone number. And he texted me back like 4 hours later being like, yeah, I missed out for a beer with my old man. And I was like, I hope that like Patrick Kane is taking you out to like a strip club right now.
His old man was in town for that?
Yeah, so it was over Easter weekend. So his parents had come down to see Aaron and his wife, Erin, and their kids. So they were in Chicago.
Well, that's nuts. So we're going to have to get him on to tell that story. So, okay, let's not figure. Okay,
and then
go ahead.
And then someone took a slap shot from the red line when we were in college, and he threw up all over himself and let the puck in.
I was skating behind him. No, you didn't have to jump to it that fast. Like jeepers, that was quick.
I was sitting in the stands and I wasn't really paying attention to the game. I was just eating, candy corn.
I had gone into forecheck Brett Lebda, and he had given me a shimmy shake and then skated it out. And I was literally staring at his ass, and he shot it from the red line, and I'm literally behind him, and he shoots it at the net. Foz lets it in top corner. Foz, man, lets it in top corner. And we're playing Notre Dame. The crowd is juiced. Everybody's into it. And then the Foz man lets it in from the red line, tips up the helmet, and just pukes all over the ice.
Do you know what the best part about the Foz story is, and what makes me happy for Foz? And
yes, no, hold on. I do know. It was when the whole crowd, when he lifted up the helmet and he puked on the ice, and the whole crowd went, like the whole student section, everybody's having a good time, everybody's drinking, everybody's having fun, and then the goalie pukes on the ice and lets a goal in from center.
That is not what makes me happy for Foz's story. What I was gonna say is what makes me, what Foz, obviously, like the whole playing for the Blackhawks story is insane. like crazy, as if Fozzie found himself in that position. And then secondly, all of a sudden, I'm like messaging a couple buddies of mine being like, yeah, like that's our buddy. Like Fozzie's our college goalie. Like I know that guy. And they're like, man, he's so funny. And I'm like, that's the biggest line of jokes I've ever heard Foz throw out in his life. Like Foz was doing comedy hour with the media. But you know, the best part about it is they have, and I don't know when the last time you've gone back to Western is, but I went, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, like me, Daryl, we met Gally there, like Malsey was there. We went and watch North Dakota play them. But they have like all around the one end of the rink, they have all of the players from Western who have played in the NHL, and you get your jersey up, and they have a Foster jersey, Blackhawks jersey up there. They're like, well, he played in the NHL. Foz gets his NHL jersey on the wall with all the other NHLers to come out of Western, which I think is so sick. And I think he dropped the puck or something like that too. I might be wrong, but I think that is so cool. And that's something that Foz, I bet you knowing Foz, that he's probably like, that's something where he's like, that's super badass, which I was super happy for him. That was such a cool story and so unbelievable, but so.
Man, the Foz is a great dude, and he was always a great teammate, and he always worked as hard as he could. He was in, like, he did the best he could, and we've talked about everything else. So I think it's time for a pee break, and then we get into the next episode. What do you think? It's too late.
I'm off that. I talk too much, so I don't really want to be on this side. It's about time that, I hope the people got what they want, and it's about time that we start diving nose deep into the Brent Walton story.
Yeah, well, hopefully this doesn't go too long that I can't speak clearly.
I want all the boys and girls out there to know that there's a large part of the Brent Walton story that if I need to do some fact checking on, I am here.
Okay, I'm shutting it down now.